Welcome back to Dive Beyond Sport. Really excited, extra anticipation for today's episode with Tom Bosworth. Tom, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, referencing the technical difficulties we had the first time trying to do this. It's entirely my fault, and that's really embarrassing because I like to think I'm up with it. But I'm here. It's Sunday. Let's do it.
The people didn't need to know. We could have got away with it.
Yeah, I know. But no, Freddie hinted at it and he just wanted to humiliate me. So there we go. We're there.
What a way to start. We love it. No, but really, thank you so much, especially on your Sunday morning as well. Tom. Well, yeah, Sunday midday.
Yeah.
My Sunday morning.
It never stops. It's a pleasure. Really, it is.
No, well, it is a pleasure for us. And then just for the listeners, Tom, for people who might not be familiar with your story up until now, just a quick elevator pitch style life story to your journey up until this point.
Okay, wow. On the spot here. Yeah, my name's Tom Bosworth. I walk for a living. I'm now known as the man who can walk faster than you can run. Oh, that's what I like to tell people. Most people can't walk run a 5K in 18 minutes. I could walk it. So that puts it into perspective there.
I can't.
Okay, we're pausing already. I can't even get it.
Yeah.
Fred's interrupting me again. Come on, what? Tell me.
No, I can't run.
Oh, okay, nice.
5K in 18 minutes.
Good.
Yeah,
there you go. But I wasn't always an athlete. I enjoyed sport as a kid. I've always been built like a stick insect. So rugby and football and things like that. Whilst I enjoyed it, it was never anything I wanted to do. So when I found athletics, running, and this weird event of race walking, thought, yeah, let's give it a go. Wasn't any good at it. Thoroughly enjoyed it though. Turned up for fitness and sort of social, and just kept turning up. As my second coach always said, Tom always could be relied on for just turning up and just being there. And the rest is sort of history, I guess. So along the way, I went to a couple of Olympic Games, broke a few world records, won about 20 plus national titles, accidentally sort of put the event of race walking, despite it being quite well known, on the map, I guess, a little bit in the UK. We got the first ever race walk in a Diamond League. That was my fault as well. And yeah, it just became an accidental flag bearer. I never really meant to, but I thought, well, you know what? If you see other athletics events getting the sort of screen time, that's the only way any of us can earn a living and do this full time. So I knew I had to put myself out there and had an incredible 14-year career. Captained England, the athletics team, to the Commonwealth Games. As I said, broke a few world and British records, and even was named on the New Year's Honours list a couple of years ago as well. So I did all right. And that was all thanks to sport, just turning up and having fun.
That's amazing. That's a beautiful kind of introductory story to you, and very much fits like your vibe. I feel like you've covered it off very well. I love the opening of you walk for a living. You know, don't we all, first of all, you know, without walking, we can't do anything. But that's literally your sport. That's literally your thing. And as you said, you put race walking on the map. I don't know of many race walkers, but the one race walker that I've always known of, also probably because of the Leeds connection as well, is Tom Bosworth. And I've always found a bit of intrigue in race walking, and you know, you kind of you race walk your friends down the street, and you do like obviously it's a bit of a unique action compared to normal walking, and the fact that you can do a 5K in 18 minutes walking is unbelievable. I don't think I've actually ever run a 5K, so I don't know how quick I'd be able to do it, but I definitely don't think it'd be 18 minutes. So I think I can fairly say that you've probably in the UK anyway, you've defined the sport of race walking, I would say. But how has the sport of race walking defined you as a person?
Yeah, massively. I think to begin with, like I say, it was purely for the social and then fun, and then see how I guess every time I achieved something, I was really content with it, because I never thought this could be a career. I wouldn't even know how it could become a career or a job prospect, you know, do it full time. So every time I achieved something that opened another door, I never took it for granted. It just was, if this is as good as it gets, this is awesome, because it wasn't meant to be. So And that's how year on year that was my mentality, probably until about 2016, where I was 26, when I went to my first Olympics. Just missed out on London by a matter of a few seconds. The Olympic distance is half marathon, so that's a distance we'd have to qualify over. So that's a few seconds is painfully close. But then from 2016 onwards, I really sort of looked at it as how can I make the most of this opportunity that I have. The race in Rio went really well for me, and again that opened doors. And I'm always somebody who just has tried to take advantage of this situation. I think in sport, a lot of athletes take things for granted and don't realise how quickly it's all gone, or how quickly you have that opportunity to snap something up, take an opportunity, meet somebody that might have an impact on your future positively. And if you're not willing to jump and say yes, then you're probably not going to take full advantage of that. And that's somebody who I've always been. I think my parents must have really drilled that into me, is just say yes. And so when those opportunities in sport came around, that sort of was a double whammy. It's a very different sort of world sport, lots of opportunity for a few. And I think that's why, despite the weird event, I managed to sort of put my name out there a little bit. And I realised, like, I'm going to have to get a job otherwise. You know, there's sort of lottery funding that we all hear about and talk about, which is cutthroat. I can't rely on that. So it's sort of, how else am I going to be able to keep getting better as an athlete, train full time, and not have to do a 9 to 5?
Well, you talked about taking opportunities, saying yes, but could you tell us about the initial opportunity? Like, how did you actually really get into it in the first place?
Joined an athletics club down in Kent where I grew up, and then eventually, sort of as I worked my way up the levels, I got my first GB vest as a junior athlete, and that sort of opened the door to go to Leeds, now Leeds Beckett University, to study and train. And England Athletics, UK Athletics had just put my coach at the time into a position there to sort of train the elite guys and girls and really build sort of race walking up in the UK, because it's got a really rich history of it, plenty of medals, and we're very successful in the past. So there was sort of a bit of a push there, and that was just perfect timing. You know, I was 19, and had that happened 10 years earlier or 10 years later, I would have missed, you know, who knows what would have happened. So I said yes to university, and off I went, trying to balance being an athlete, moving away from home, eat healthy, you know, do all of it, and not having a clue. So that's sort of how I stumbled into it in terms of a career, I guess. And then I was able to sort of learn off people around me in Leeds, see some of the best athletes, develop with some of the best athletes along the way. Obviously, Alan, John Brownlee, Laura Waitman, a few people like that were there at the same time. So it was sort of a great opportunity. And again, as I said earlier, that's who I am. I just keep asking questions, keep pushing, keep seeing sort of what I can learn to better myself, and that's what I did.
So one of the things as well that you said in the beginning that was interesting, and I'd like to kind of maybe understand more about this development then. So obviously you said at early stages you were just really happy with you weren't really thinking anything in particularly about it, not necessarily that you wanted to be like a full-time athlete or do this professionally, right? So you said you were happy with every single win and accomplishment, but obviously it eventually that seemed to start to stack up, and from what I understand, eventually your attitude around that changed. And when did it become like all-consuming?
Yeah, good word. It was all, like I said, it was always fun up till 2016, and that then changed what I thought I could achieve, and that's where the mentality shifted. So it was like, right, I'm working hard, I'm committed, I'm what I call layering success, year in, season on season, tweaking things, changing things, focusing on one bit at a time, not trying to do it all at once. And that's worked really well. So I kept that going, but it was how much more could I, the word sacrifice is used a lot, how much more could I sort of change in my life to make sure that I could be a medal contender when we hit Tokyo. And so that's when it really became my life. It already was, but it was sort of, in endurance sport, we would spend a lot of time at altitude. So that could be in Europe, in South Africa, Arizona, in the States. And that would be weeks upon weeks upon weeks away from home, and sleeping in an altitude tent when you're at home as well. So even your sleep and your home life is sort of dictated. There's no socializing outside the sport really. There's no normality, how I see it, and that became far too much at a point in a few years later. About 2018, it was all became a bit self-destructive really, and it took its toll ultimately, because it wasn't just the last couple of years of that sort of level of sacrifice. It was just doing this and knowing nothing else as a in my adult life. At that point, we're talking 9 years basically of full-time training and full-time commitment to something. And whilst it gets a bit dark after this, I look back at it now and I try not to make it a moan session, because what I did what we all do as athletes, we're so fortunate, not lucky, we're fortunate to do it. And there's so many worse things to be doing in life than being an athlete. However, that's still your life. That's still your 24 hours in a day. That's all that's going through your head. So in 2018, I wasn't myself. I'm a very extroverted, happy person and somebody who never expected a mental health battle at all. And that's what happened. And it's certainly, talking about mental health really bothers me in today's world, because I'll explain what I went through and why I'm going to call it a mental illness, which is very important than just mental health. So as one thing led to another, I was away from home a lot through 2017, 2018. I'd had the World Championships in London were a massive opportunity for me. A year after Rio, I felt like I could win a medal. I was leading, and in race walking we have the rules where if you break the rules and you look like you're running, you can get yellow cards, red cards, disqualification. And my only disqualification in 10 years was leading the World Championships in London in front of Buckingham Palace live on BBC Two. So it could have been worse timed. Yeah. And it sort of just it brought me down to earth with a bump, big time. I was sacrificing everything, and my whole life was being an athlete, and I knew nothing else. So it was very, very challenging, and my relationships were already a little bit torn, because I was sort of pulling myself just to be an athlete and not focused on my fiance at the time, my family, my friends. They all understood, they all supported, and I was very lucky with that. So I was burning bridges left, right and centre, and then it was sort of that trigger of I don't want to go training. I'm going to let people down again, and I'm going to what if I lose funding? What if I lose my sponsors? What else do I do in my life? All these sorts of things. So it was a real catch-22, which, being away from home, I then were able to shut that door. I'm an athlete, focus, 24/7. We can just focus on the next competition, the Commonwealth Games, European Championships. And I still was able to perform, but I was neglecting myself. And ultimately, when I got back home, it got worse. Relationship wasn't good. Home life wasn't good. I wasn't happy. I didn't want to do what I was doing. But again, I was so fortunate enough. I knew how lucky I was, and I only have one shot at this. I couldn't come back to it in 10 years' time. So conflicted, it got very dark in the autumn of 2018, and I did sort of contemplate taking my life on a couple of occasions. And that's when Harry is my fiance at the time, said to me, you need to get a little bit of help. I'm not standing by you any longer. This has got too much. And it was that moment. It was a bit of a light bulb moment, and I contacted my doctor at UK Athletics, who put me in touch with somebody, a very good sports psychiatrist, and over the next 18 months to 2 years, life got a lot better. I got a lot of support. UK Sport were very good, and it left me very confused as to how on earth something so positive in my life and exciting had got so dark so very quickly, and how I could bounce off that, and what was next. What did the next chapter look like?
There's so much there to pick up on, and I mean, first of all, the fact that for what the person I know you to be from a distance, and the person that you present now, the fact that you got to that level, that point where you were considering taking your own life like that is extremely surprising, because I just don't see that vibe at all. But it kind of shows you that you can never really understand what's going on behind the scenes in the person. But I don't know. I've had a relationship that broke down due to my very narrow-minded focus on sport, and especially it was during the pandemic, going towards Tokyo. I felt like the only way that I could be was what I did, which affected the people a little bit around me. But I didn't see that. I felt that was necessary, and we kind of do what we feel is necessary to achieve the level of performance that we desire. And it's often only in hindsight that you can think about it and say, actually, that wasn't right. It's really hard to avoid that. And I think on top of all that, as you mentioned about the fact that you were the flag bearer for your sport, that you said it happened accidentally, which is even harder to deal with, I guess, because there's certain people that kind of seek the spotlight or seek being a standout figure for their sport or for their cause or for whatever it is. I kind of found myself in a similar position, being the sole representative in diving for Jamaica, and I felt a gradual building of responsibility to represent the nation well in my particular sport. That there wasn't as much pressure, I think, on my shoulders, maybe compared to yours. But when it happens accidentally like that, did you feel like you were ready for such a responsibility? Did you feel like you could be ready, or did you have to change the way you were to be able to deal with that responsibility?
I didn't know what I was doing. So I don't know. I don't think I could have been ready for it, because whilst there's probably 10% of me who is an absolute attention seeker and loves it. That's only. It's very hard to be switched on to that all the time and tap into that. And maybe I probably tapped into that far too much. I think you hear it with sort of celebrities, in sort of mainstream TV, media, presenters, whatever it might be. On camera, they're a personality type, and that's how they've been successful, and you've got to be like that. But that's only a tiny percentage of their actual personality. So when someone asks for a selfie at 11 o'clock at night on a Tuesday whilst they're just doing the shopping, and they're told to F off or whatever because they're tired, oh goodness, this person is awful, because they're not like what you see that 1 hour every week on their show or whatever. And I certainly never was that sort of level of fame, but I think it's that sort of, this is what you asked for, so let's, you got to deal with it. But I didn't really know what I was asking for. As I said yes to all these opportunities, which grew my profile, and the social media started to build, and then I got whatever left, right, and centre, and it was all very exciting. And some of my teammates and peers and rivals in the sport were like, I'm almost just as good as you, or a couple of international people will be, oh, I'm better than you, how are you getting all this sort of thing? And even within the sport, everybody knew who I was, and everyone in the sport still knows who I am. It's not exactly a massive sport, but I could go to any athletics event where there's a race walk on, and people now will still ask for my picture, and I'm like, this is awesome, I love that, and I've done a lot there. But I can see why that had such an impact at the time, and why, like you say, but where you said you don't see that in me. That's why I say the word mental illness is really important. And that's the education side of today, and everything I do is it is an illness. It's just like having your physical health is, have you rolled your ankle when you're out for a run, but it's all right, you can carry on. Or have you rolled your ankle but you've broken it and you need to go and get some help? That's exactly the same with your mental health. Is at what point does it hit? Does it become, you had a bit of a dark day, you're a bit miserable, you're a bit anxious, whatever whatever the feelings are, they're all valid. But when it becomes every single day for a month, that's going, oh, this isn't healthy. This is my mental health changing and it perhaps could be leading to something, or you're already suffering and dealing with something that you're not aware of. And so it really, I get really passionate about this because I can see the difference between, no, you're a bit anxious because you've got something really big in your life happening. That's okay. That's normal. And then let's also encourage, no, this is impacting your life day in, day out. That is something very, very different and needs to be supported and addressed. And I think with mental health as well, you will hide it better, or those who are really suffering learn how to hide it, learn how to mask it, and perhaps aren't the ones who are going to reach out and ask for help. So it's a real sort of catch-22 tricky one there. And I think that just comes with education, not just talking mental health, talking the difference between mental health and mental illness.
Well, and that's particularly a men's issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think in generally speaking, that lack of willing to actually ask for help and to, I think, that's, unfortunately, that seems to be something that, men find so difficult in particular. But you obviously, you did reach out for help. And, that obviously sounds like a really important thing that you did. And you said once speaking to that psychiatrist, the next couple of years, things became a lot better. You also said that obviously at that time, prior to that, you were all in on the sport. And so it's maybe, that the identity was fully consumed by it. I mean, what kind of things, obviously in a way that you're comfortable to share, what were the big things that helped when you did that work with the psychiatrist over those couple of years? What really helped pull you out of that space?
Yes, so it was 2 years of therapy of a kind, I guess. And it was sort of just ultimately what it all, after uncovering sort of the issues and what was going on in my head, ultimately what was really important was valuing life, of which it's just, I think everybody should have this anyway, sort of thing, because that my outlook on life has changed massively for the better. I'm so delighted I went through what I did, because it's changed me so much. And I'm in an even better place than I was prior to it all. And it was all about valuing the little things in your life. It was, whilst you can't do sport professionally half-hearted. You just can't do it. So you either quit and you find something else to do with your life, or you start to value bits that make up your life as a whole. So I had the athlete side of things, all of that work that goes into that. But one of my favorite exercises that my psychiatrist set me, I always call it the wrong name, and he tells me off for what it is whenever I talk about it. I talk about it all the time because it's awesome. But I talk about it, how I understand and picture it in my head, is if you draw a square on a piece of paper, they're your four foundations. The four corners are your foundations of your house. And if your house is you need all four to hold you up. So one of them might be athletics, might be Tom the athlete. The other one might be Tom, husband, a brother, dog owner. I don't sing, but you could be a singer. I don't know what else it could be. So you've got all those sorts of 4 points. And yeah, you could lose one of them. One of them could be going badly and the other 3 will hold you up. But if only one of them is working and the other 3 aren't, your house is going to topple over. And that for me worked. In my head, that made complete sense. And I was like, oh yeah, they just need to be right now in my life. There's a lot of focus on being an athlete, but the other bits of being a good husband, being a good brother and son, that can bring my life joy, and it will also bring other people's life joy. And I'm now at a point that I really don't care, which I say that to everybody when I talk about this. I don't care. I care massively. I care far too much about what I do and everything I do. I coach now. I work with elite athletes now. I do a lot of talks. I'm trying to build a health app to encourage people to move. Our most vulnerable in society to move. But I put my all into everything I do. But when I get home and close the door, I'm like, so what if it goes wrong? Who gives a shit? Like I still get to come home to my Labrador and Harry and a nice bottle of red if Harry's not drunk it whilst I'm out. and like, it's good. I get to go to the pub now. I'm not an athlete. Or there's football on at the weekend. I can't wait to watch that. I just appreciate everything now, and that allows me to switch off and change, and that's the difference.
The analogy of the four corners being the foundation is actually really interesting, because my first thought was like, what if you don't feel like you have four things, and you're already then you're already like out of balance. So even something as basic as that forces someone to identify the fact that they are more than just one thing, which I think is really important, especially athletes, because it's very easy to get so caught up in your athlete life and forget about all the other bits of value that you have to give in other aspects of life. And as you say, it could be as simple as Tom the dog owner, as well as Tom the athlete and Tom the partner, or whatever else, you know, Tom the entrepreneur. I think it's so easy for athletes to lose touch of the fact that they are valuable in other aspects of life more than just their sport. So that's a really interesting analogy to share. Did it take some time to think about what the other corners were for you, other than just Tom the athlete? Yes. And what was the process that you had to go on to figure out what was important?
100%, because you take it for granted. You don't mean to, but things that seem so normal. And this is relevant for everybody. It's because we all do it. It's why relationships break down. It's why sort of people keep longing for more, because they don't realize what they've got, at home. So it's sort of literally Alan, my psychiatrist, had to tell me what my other corners were to begin with, because I was like, I didn't seem worthy in my own head of I didn't think I was a good husband. I probably wasn't at that point. Or a good son or whatever. But it made me, it galvanized me so I would be as well. And because suddenly I appreciated it all. Because I'd gone from taking it for granted to realizing that this is a hugely crucial part of who I am. And why should it make me happy? Well, because how lucky I am to have this. But everybody has it, in whatever it might look like. Everyone had or has parents. Everyone, might have a sibling or a pet or a neighbour that they see, or a best friend, or the landlord at the local pub. Yes, I've mentioned pubs a lot. I like going to pubs now, and all that sort of thing. So it's just realising what it is.
Man, it's really making me reflect, actually, this conversation, because I recognize a lot of the similar things in me and my journey. I mean, I'm not going to say that things went to the same extent for me, but I know that I lived, particularly through the winters, in quite a in a way quite a I'm not going to say dark, but I'm going to say heavy space, because I didn't have my four corners. in a way, I was desperate to find them,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like I wanted to be like, oh, Freddie's cool because he does the diving, but he also is like, you know, plays bass guitar. Like
Yeah.
I didn't play bass guitar, you know, but like, so I was like, but what? So like, what is my thing? And I remembered going through a period of trying loads of stuff, but like, you know, nothing was ever like perfect. And I never felt like it was worthy enough of, or I wasn't good enough, let's say, to make it like one of my pillars. You know, it was like salsa dancing. Oh, that's fun, but it's like, am I? You know, in my head, I'm like, but who are you kidding? You're not a salsa dancer. You're a diver. You know, and then
You were good at salsa
even with
dancing,
like,
though,
you know,
Freddie. You were good at salsa dancing. That could have been your thing for sure. We always talked about
Well,
you going
yeah,
on Strictly.
it's still a dream. Still a dream. But
But
you know,
it's so relevant. But that's a high performance mindset as well that you're looking at there. Because if you're not the best at it, why bother doing it? Which is a terrible mindset. But that's how we got to this level as well. And what I'm conscious of and cautious of almost is there's so much talk in elite sport outside of what I would call professional sport. So within Olympic sport, there's a lot of negative talk in terms of how hard it is and how depressed people get. And there's a lot of mental health talk within this space at the moment. And if I'm a 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid wanting to get into sport, it sounds pretty fucking miserable to be involved in it. Excuse my French there, but it's just like,
It's right.
why would I want to do this? And so I think whilst these conversations are really valid and incredibly important, and I've told my story, now I feel responsibility to be like, this was awful. I allowed myself to get into it. UK sport do better. You know, if you're supporting an athlete, that's whole package. And I know that the support that is there is phenomenal. So it's sort of, how do we drip feed that as part of not just the physical side of coaching and medical and all that, it's a mental health package that comes along with it. Because professional sport, as we know, if you're firing on all cylinders, you're probably going to be really, really successful. So now I'm really passionate about going, yeah, it's really hard. Not everybody goes to the Olympic Games for a reason. And it is pretty lonely, and it can be quite dark when you're exhausted and you've got to go out and do another 5 miles in the pissing rain, and when your mates are in the pub and you're not, sort of thing. And there's all this sacrifice, but it's so worth it because I've been to every continent practically on this planet. I've not worked a day in my life, of which when I was 11, I promised my dad I wouldn't work a proper job. I'm 35. I think I've achieved that. And what an awesome life I'm living. So that's why my story is I'm trying to spin it so positively now, because there's, no matter what you do, there's peaks and troughs, and it can get pretty dark and pretty tough, but there's nothing better in sport. You could quit it at any point and go and do whatever else you want. You can train up and try and be something else, do something else, but you'll never have that opportunity in sport again. So if you have that opportunity as a youngster and you want to achieve something, it isn't going to be easy, but it's awesome if you can commit to it. And that's sort of my message.
Literally, what you have done to take you there as well is something that everybody in the world does. Not everyone can dive. Not everyone goes up on the board and feels comfortable jumping. Everyone, I guess, well, excluding people with disability, everyone walks. You know, everyone walks. It's a part of what we all do, but kind of generally subconsciously, you know, we don't really think about walking mechanics, I imagine, in the way that you had to. And obviously the walking that you did is very different to what everyone else does, and arguably people should do it a lot more, and that's something that you're trying to tackle now, and that's something that you're working on.